So, this is part two of our estate planning and succession series, focusing on intergenerational wealth succession. A successful transfer of wealth from one generation to the next generation leads to seemingly effortless capital growth and accumulation. But trust me, a lot of thought and diligent planning goes into this endeavor. So I think spending time in this area will be enormously fruitful for anyone who takes this seriously. If I had to sum up the noble objective of wealth succession into a single phrase, it is to ensure an enduring family legacy. We hope that this webinar provides you with clear insights that we have gained over the years via consulting in this often overlooked aspect of financial planning. If you will indulge me, I would like to encapsulate the whole idea in a few paragraphs. This will convey the essential hallmarks of a successful wealth transfer. Now that we have set the framework, I think it'll be good to start off, I think, with what is the succession landscape in terms of global statistics. Over the next few years, trillions of US dollars are expected to succeed into the next generation. This is worldwide, and it's just quoted in US dollars. Research conducted by Credit Suisse covering high net worth and ultra high net worth clients reveals some surprising statistics. Of notable significance is that 70% of families report a failure in intergenerational wealth succession, and 67% cite succession planning and inheritance as their biggest concerns. So, this is a reality. These are real people who have been interviewed and surveyed in this research. One would think that those who do not have wealth or do have wealth would ensure that this is addressed via diligent attention and professional input. But surprisingly, it's an often neglected area of financial planning. So, let's add color to the basic aims of desirable wealth succession. We use the word desirable here as we are striving for the ideal scenario. What do we want at the end of the day? A smooth transfer of wealth or inheritance. All processes must not be scuppered by a lack of records, documents, or perhaps an invalid will, or prolonged negotiations on the sale of a business, or any other business interests or private equity investments. We want smooth transfer of wealth. Timeous in the sense that all aspects must be in order, handled professionally, resulting in the shortest possible time to get the financial assets to be transferred and to work as it was intended. You also want to ensure that, inheritance taxes, in South Africa we call that estate duty, but in general, inheritance taxes, you want to make sure that you don't pay more than what you absolutely need to pay. Special attention needs to be paid to ensure that inheritance taxes are paid once, not on multiple times on each succession event. You also want to protect and grow these assets. You want to house business interests, investments, property assets in the correct structures so that it is protected against negative tax consequences or protected against poor decisions of a single family member or many other forces that could deplete what has been built. Family harmony, is a very important uh, thing that will ensure a enduring financial legacy. You can see the symbol of the heart is there in terms of family. We all want those hearts to beat as almost as one when it comes to money issues. And the family harmony is therefore critical. In what we've seen in successful wealth transfers across generations, family harmony is a binding force. You also need a common set of values amongst everybody, maybe not exactly the same value system, but a common set of values when it comes to money, succession, businesses, and a shared understanding of why things have been set up in a particular way. So we have now summarized what the aims are. What maybe it would be good to look at what could derail these aims. What are the obstacles to desirable wealth succession? Let's take a look at this in the next slide. I would like to approach this next slide about obstacles when we're speaking about obstacles and discussing each one and then laying out the mitigating tools that would negate or resolve these obstacles. So let's first discuss the obstacles. As they appear, you will notice the difference in size of the circles. This is just to provide context. The larger circles being the most significant in our opinion. And as you get to the smaller circles, these obstacles are still real, but they are less impactful on wealth succession. So let's go. Estate delays are caused by many factors. Some of them are out of our control or out of the executive's control, such as delays in the Master of the High Court, in processing estates, loss of documents at the Master's offices, just general incompetency and inefficiency. But there are other delays that can be avoided if the estate planning ensures diligent housekeeping. But we'll get to that soon. Estate illiquidity. Well, I think estate illiquidity basically can be an obstacle where you find that you have large estates that have a lot of illiquid assets. So a lot of business interests, a lot of private equity investments, a lot of property investments, which contribute to the value of the estate, but are not liquid. And they could cause a lot of estate duty, but the funding of that estate duty and the capital gains tax and other liabilities might create a shortage of liquidity, and that's what we mean by estate illiquidity. The greatest obstacle is the necessity to maybe sell assets at the wrong time to fund any estate illiquidity. Next is international assets. When it comes to international assets, the obstacle here is that lots of international assets are not held in the correct structures, resulting in them being subject to the winding up processes in South Africa. And that can cause an enormous number of delays in the access to these investments or assets. Reason being is that depending on where the international assets are held, in that particular country, it might have its own probate procedures, meaning their own estate wind-up procedures, where the custodians of those funds or investments, whichever institution it may be, or maybe it's a property, physical property, it may require the permission from that governmental authority to liquidate and release those funds for somebody that's been deceased. And it's only after getting that clearance that there is no taxes due in that particular jurisdiction that that asset then can be passed on to the next generation. So these obstacles of international assets not being held in the correct structures can cause succession problems. Next, we discuss the location of heirs. It is related to international assets, but we're seeing increasingly now that the heirs are now located internationally in the global marketplace, in the global workplace. So you could have heirs that are located outside South Africa. And how do you resolve that? Because how does the estate get wound up and they succeed to the assets without causing succession problems, delays, and other important considerations? There's exchange control clearances and other complexities of transferring assets offshore come into play here. When it comes to inheritance taxes, paying inheritance taxes each time capital devolves to the next generation really erodes wealth succession. It's letting authorities take more than one bite of the apple is a really easy way to throw away hard-earned returns on your family investments and wealth. Transparency, education, and verbal relay. These three I'd like to discuss in one go. It's basically transparency, education, and communication. The lack of this is a great obstacle. Basically, the way the estate is set up, for it to have desired succession across generations, there should be transparency. It should not be a secret. The key people, the key next generation, there should be strong communication with them. There should be education initiatives as to why things are structured the way they are, discussions. But we find that the obstacle here is that there's a lack of this. I don't think it's deliberate. I just think clients miss the opportunity, or it does not occur to them that it's actually very important to formalize the communication with the next generation, the remainder of the family, and have transparency. Lack of transparency has a great effect on family harmony, and it has a great effect on ensuring, a negative effect on ensuring that there is a common set of values. Lastly, but not least, I think, is sibling rivalry. And we find that amongst family members, sometimes there isn't a common set of values as to how money should be managed, the objectives, the lifestyle objectives, investment objectives. That can cause sibling or other types of family friction, maybe the surviving spouse and the children, or amongst the children, amongst the siblings. This can cause delays to the estate and also create an unstable wealth succession if they are forced to enjoy the fruits of the same set of assets. So often you would find that the three sons or the two sons or the siblings have a different view on the meaning of what's been left, essentially for their well-being. And if they're forced into a situation where it does not take into account their individual attitudes and needs, it could create further disharmony. Now, having identified these obstacles to desirable wealth succession, I think now would be a great time to move into mitigating tools. One of the tool set that can assist in dissolving or resolving these obstacles. Firstly, let's talk about estate planning. An estate planning exercise, which has a very broad and far reaching scope, if you do it properly, will certainly reduce avoidable estate delays. It is the catalyst for the creation of trusts, and it ensures that the will is easily executable. It also covers the checklist of documents required on death, ensures that the original will is kept in a safe location and that it's reviewed regularly. All this means is that any cause of estate wind-up delay that is in your hands will be mitigated to a large extent by ensuring you do estate planning. Estate insurance is necessary where the estate plan calculations indicate that there's a liquidity problem. It might identify that there are shortfalls in liquidity. At that stage, estate insurance that are policies that would pay into the estate, providing immediate liquidity, can be incepted, okay, or some of the existing policies may be redirected to pay into the estate to ensure there's liquidity. And I think that will solve a lot of the possible estate liquidity problems. International tax and estate wrappers and foreign wills. Here, housing your investments within an umbrella that affords easy succession is a must. To use an analogy, these wrappers are simply an estate-friendly vehicles within which the engine of all your investments are held. These umbrellas, they will serve to speed up the transfers, which can happen within 2 weeks instead of 2 years if wound up in the estate. They serve to reduce executors' fees. They also serve to provide easy succession to heirs that might be located overseas. For assets that are not housed within these type of umbrellas or wrappers, it is necessary to ensure that these foreign assets have a will or a foreign will that covers those assets, preferably a will for the country in which those assets are physically located in. Then trusts. If you want to avoid continually paying inheritance taxes over and over again into succeeding generations, I think trusts are an important planning tool, especially in South Africa. The use of trusts and the use of various types of trusts in different jurisdictions as well assists in ensuring that your wealth succession remains free of frictional costs every time it succeeds into the new generation. So why should those assets be continuously wound up in estates? Family meetings and education of the heirs may be formal or informal. They can be done by the estate planner alone or by inviting the professional team, which then makes it a little more formal. We have experienced that meetings conducted in the presence of a professional team creates an environment where all family members can contribute and ask the necessary questions. The professional team can guide and moderate the discussions to lead to a better understanding of the estate plan and the intentions of the estate planner. A family meeting to illustrate how the estate will devolve and how the estate has been structured and so on, I think is critically important. These type of discussions contribute to the education of the heirs, but even further, formal program to educate heirs on financial planning, taxes, and estate are done by some wealth management firms. Now, family wealth constitution, you might have not heard of this term as it's not commonplace in estate planning. However, it does play a key role in creating shared values and common understanding amongst family members in the more complex business and wealth structures. So we're talking about much larger estates, which have various businesses and investments and local and international structures. The family wealth constitution is more relevant there. It's basically a document that outlines the family values and the ethos when it comes to business, investments, wealth, and lifestyle. It ensures that the CEO of the family, who drives this process, has documented and enunciated the values that have got them to where they are right now. And in the modern sense now, it also involves input from other family members in the next generation. It's become more of a collaborative document nowadays than what it used to be in the past. It clears up business and succession issues, which could cause enormous amount of friction should these matters be unclear upon the unexpected demise of the CEO or the head of the family. Um, you know, the family wealth constitution can touch on aspects of the estate plan and draw in some of the conclusions from there for the sake of clarity and also anchor why the succession has been structured in a certain way. Remember, this is a voluntary document. It's not a legal document, and nobody is bound by it. But we've done family wealth constitutions for families which have assisted them in this process, and it is desirable to have one if it's relevant to your situation. I've decided to address retirement succession separately because technically retirement funds and retirement income funds, namely living annuities or life annuities, do not fall into the estate but can still experience succession problems. And let me handle it in the same way. Some of the obstacles regarding retirement succession can be described as beneficiary nominations, as the first one, and the second one is choice of annuity. And what we mean by this is that as long as your retirement funds are still retirement funds and not been converted into retirement income funds, your beneficiary nomination is just a guidance to the pension fund trustees. They ultimately decide, after considering your beneficiary nominations and other financial aspects of the children and other financial dependents, as to how the retirement funds should be dispersed. This might not suit your desired succession objectives, and therefore that is an obstacle because it's truly not in your hands. The second one of the choice of annuity is that once you decide to start drawing down on your retirement funds, you have to make a choice of whether it's going to be a guaranteed annuity that's going to be paid to you for the rest of your life, or an annuity where you, with your advisors, construct the investment assets within the living annuity and draw down percentages that are variable over time, with the capital value of the underlying investments also varying over time. And if you need those assets to succeed to the next generation, and if those assets are large enough to last throughout your retirement, then making the choice of getting a guaranteed annuity will not create any wealth to succeed to the next generation. How you mitigate these two is that as soon as practical, if it's possible to convert your retirement funds into retirement income funds, then you'll have full choice of who you'd like to benefit on your demise regarding that fund. And secondly, If it's possible and your circumstances dictate that there'll be enough capital to choose the form of an annuity that will allow you to pass on excess funds to the next generation on your demise. And that's how you solve these two. Now, what's the way forward? Having identified the obstacles and understood how to mitigate these with the mitigating tools, what's the way forward? How do you start getting your house in order and tackle this most neglected part of financial planning? Well, the way forward, I think, is if you want to set the foundations for wealth transfer in a positive and abundant way, you first have to have an estate plan. That's where we would start. Then, when the estate plan is done or in the process of being finalized, you need to have a family meeting that's to discuss what's the meaning of the estate plan, what conclusions that it's come to, and how everything's been structured. And then, if necessary and relevant to your circumstances, you could take the bold step of drafting a family constitution after conducting these family meetings and so on. Then, based on the recommendations of the estate plan, finalize the will. And if there are trusts to be formed, draft the trust deeds and register the trusts. And that I would say is the steps to go through. And the last three considerations are, namely, international wrappers, estate insurance, and foreign wills should be addressed if it's relevant to your circumstances. One thing I can say is that do not leave any international assets unprotected. Ensure that it's wrapped in the correct structure so that it's not subject to the South African estate wind-up process, and it's not subject to foreign currencies estate processes and procedures. To make this a successful endeavor, you need to have the support of a multidisciplinary team with the correct skill set to implement this in a coordinated manner, preferably all under one roof. If you haven't appointed a firm that can implement all of this, at least ensure that your accountant, attorney, investment advisor, and insurance broker meet as a group to resolve this coordination of this endeavor. In closing, I strongly recommend that you review your situation and assess whether it needs professional input, and if so, do not postpone this project. Thank you so much. That's the end of the webinar.